especially with a cat meowing at my feet. I know. Oh, so complaining. But we want that to line up like that. Get off. Alright, so now we need to deal with the projector. Just move all that out of the way. Wires will come off once we get this guy out. This is the assembly for swiveling the headlight left and right. A whole bunch of Torx screws we need to take out, some on the top, some on this little motor here on the side, and some on this little plastic cover down here on the bottom. You can see that there's 4. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Alright, all the fasteners are out, so yay. This is what reads the position of the left and right. This little guy has to peel off, but you want to take your motor off too. He just peels back, and he has a little clip on the back that you've got to be aware of. So he just kind of flips off of there, and then you can release the wires carefully, like that. And say that connector in there is for your high beam shutter, and he just pulls straight out. So I'll go ahead and remove that. And now I've removed the little connector from here. So here's our projector. So the next thing that we need to do, remove these little supports here. This screw's already been removed when we removed the motor. There's another screw inside of here, another one there, and another one over here on that side. Go ahead and take those out. I should have mentioned these top screws come in from the front, and they can be a little difficult to access because you're shoving a screwdriver under here to get to them. One of the tricks you can do, if you stick your finger back in here on this gold worm gear, I'm going to give him a little spin. You can see it's rotated this entire bracket out of the way. That'll give you a little more room to get in there. And I'm just forgetting everything today. So pull up on this bracket just a little bit, and you can kind of separate the entire housing that way. In fact, this should lift straight out like that. He's just tension fit in there. Set him aside, and now you've got plenty of room to get to that screw and this screw over here. Also, you can stick your inside of the... You also may just want to remove that screw back there and knock that screw out as well, you know, to give yourself a little more room. Might want to do that. So with the top screws out of the way now, we can remove this little plastic bit. He just sits in there like that. He actually belongs over here. He lives in there like that with that other metal guy. And that's kind of what the top pivot point is for this entire thing swiveling left and right. Now we just need to kind of get this projector out of here and just kind of finagle it out. Beat it with a hammer, burn it. So also now that we've removed the screws, we can remove this metal bracket on the back, which you just kind of squeeze in like that. Makes a horrible sound. It's just retained in there. Just give it a little squeezy squeeze like that, and it'll be good. And now we should be able to get this projector out of here with a little bit of fighting, you know. And I just kind of finagled him out the back after making sure that this was lined up more or less straight by spinning the gold gear in the back. So here's our old projector. We won't be needing him, so do whatever. This is a really cool assembly, I think. This mounts with these 4 screws in the front here into this plastic frame, and then the projector rides on the rest of it. So what ends up happening is that's pointing left now, and then the motor drives it the other direction, and now it's pointing left. So that's how your swiveling headlights work in these Saabs. It's actually kind of cool. Fun to play with. And don't worry about what position you get this in. You can always put it back to dead center later on. It's not too hard. Woo! And here's our new projector. You want an unboxing? Too bad. Be sure you grab your bag with all your fun little accessories for the projector itself. Here we can see the new one on the right and the old one on the left. The lenses alone. Just a huge difference. Hi! You can see the reflector bowl in the back. Huge difference between the two as well. And go ahead and get these installed. Oh, another thing I should mention. The new one is slightly shorter than the old one, and I'll show you how to deal with that. Remember these guys over here? The top pivot point? Well, this normally lives right under here, and it's got a nice little hole, and it bolts up perfectly, and it's wonderful. Our new projector doesn't, and so getting that on there can be kind of interesting. What the Retrofit source offers is this adapter bracket. This is the Evo XR adapter bracket for the D2S style projector that I'm using. This kind of mounts on here from the back. However, we kind of need to cut this down and basically just use the corners in order to get things to line up correctly. Actually, I forget which way up is, but I'll show you what we're doing with this here in a second. So this is the back of the projector, and here's what the bracket looks like lined up on there. You see it fits on there pretty nice. And we can take our little guy here, and, oh no. Oh no, there's no way. Because what you've got to remember is this middle bracket lives back here as well, and it lines up perfectly with these holes. And then the screws that, anyways, the screws are actually retained into this bracket that will hold this on. So basically all we've got to do is use these little corners out of here, because otherwise this little part's going to be in the way, and this bottom part we don't need, and that'll also interfere with some other stuff that I forget when I was doing the other headlight. So let's go cut this bracket real quick. Utilize your Dremel spinning wheel of death to make a cut here, 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 and here. Let me show you what the finished part looks like. This is what you do. And then we won't be using this, we won't be using this, only be using these. And clean up these edges with sanding and dremeling and whatever you see fit. Let me do that. So now we just need to put these little guys on the projector. This is the included hardware that came with the bracket. These are 7mm lock nuts, and these are some Phillips head screws. And I'll show you how to put them on. Put them on like this. And I did leave them slightly loose so we have a little bit of wiggle room to adjust things. We can tighten them up fully later. But yeah. We also need to make another minor tweak here. Knock these two little screws out of the bottom of the projector, and I'll show you why. And it has to do with putting this guy back on. They will butt up against this surface if they are in there. And it's not going to matter that we've removed them because we're going to be driving screws in from the back and it's going to clamp it together. We also need to go Dremel off this little peg over here and this little peg over here as well. So I'll go knock those off with the Dremel real quick. Alright, and you can see just Dremeled it off, Dremeled it off. Doesn't need to be pretty, nobody's going to see it. But now we can go ahead and get this projector inside of here and finish putting things together. Okay, so we went ahead and put the projector in. I just used the stock screws, one there and one there. And you can see why it was important to grind those off, because we want it to meet up with that perfectly there. And same over here on this side. Focus. Meets up perfectly. So now we can deal with the situation going on up here of getting this all to match up perfectly. Made a small mistake earlier about the position of these little ears. I had these up in the upper holes. Let me show you. I had these screws going through the top holes, and they need to go through the lower ones. So, just wanted to fix that real quick before we moved forward, because otherwise nothing else is going to line up. So at this point, I've put this metal bracket back on. We've secured it up here through these little ears using just the hardware that came with the bracket and the 7mm nuts. And I went ahead and put the screw in on the left side for the bottom part. This part won't go on yet because that's where the motor goes, and we don't want to mess with that and avoiding all the wires and such. So now we get to deal with this up here. We need to make up the difference between this space and this up here so that we can have this bracket mount in here correctly. And we'll just get some nuts and washers and stuff and see if we can't space it out correctly. Now these are just out of Harbor Freight kits that I happen to have laying around. These screws are just stock screws that were in the original Saab projector housing. These are rubber sealing washers, I believe, and these are, I think, M5 nuts, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, that's what I'm using here, and I'll show you where I put them and how to stack them up. Okay, so I went ahead and stuck that together there, just so I can show you what we're dealing with. We can just do that, and stay, and he rotates that way. So you can see we've got a little bit of space here to make up, and that's why we've got those washers. So I'll show you how I do it. And here's what the part stack up looks like. Stock screw there, washer behind it, cut rubber washer back there, and same on the other side. Basically what we want is these holes to line up without really stressing any of this forward and back. That's what we want to be able to do. This is incredibly hard to do through a camera, especially with a cat meowing at my feet. I know. Oh, so complaining. But we want that to line up like that. Get off. Also, it would have been smarter to do earlier, but if we could focus, there's a little electrical connector in there. That's for the high beam shutter. That's this. We just want to plug that in. Either do it before you put the projector in there or have fun putting it in like I'm about to. Okay, got the wiring in, ran it, whoa, just ran it out there. And I also went ahead and put these two screws in that were holding this bracket. Something that we want to make sure works smoothly. Spin the little gold, worm gear, make sure this guy can rotate okay. He looks like he's doing alright. Spinning him back the other way. And you can see everything works well. This doesn't feel like it's binding up or anything. We should be good. So when reinstalling your little motor here with the two screws that I see right here, make sure that you're not pinching the bi-xenon shutter wires, and make sure that you're getting this metal bracket that we were dealing with earlier to line up, because these screws screw into this bracket. This one here screws in, and this one here screws in down on the other side. Let me see if I can show you. Yep, you can kind of see a little bit of metal sticking out right down there. So just make sure it lines up okay, and suck my... So I've got the projector upside down, and we just need to finish installing the rest of the stuff that pertains to wiring. These wires are normally supposed to be routed through this channel here. I'm not going to worry about it. There's plenty of room in the headlight housing. So we need to install this little flat door, which has a little tab back here that is impossible to do with one hand. Regardless, he goes there, and then our other piece goes on top of him like that. And there's two screws and two screws. So let me show you what it looks like once you get it together. Beautiful, 4 screws are in, woohoo. And that's pretty much it. So you basically have just got to screw everything back together here using these guys. So we'll go ahead and put that in. And just as an FYI, this is the easiest way that I found to get everything to line up correctly. Just putting it up on its back. Pretty. But we're not done yet. Don't admire your work for too long. We gotta swing this guy around, and we gotta deal with some soldering here. This is our old high beam solenoid. We just need to cut this connector off and then solder in our other 2 wires. Say the polarity on this does not matter. I tested it both ways when assembling the other headlight. It doesn't care. Just connect these 2 wires to these 2 wires. Solder. Don't use crimps. Soldered. Alright. Stick your fun little silicone washer on there. Just, well, you don't really need to, but I did. And the other stuff that came with the projector. Say lock ring is going to go on first, and that's going to allow us to have something to put our bulb into. It's going to back up against that, and then that is for holding the bulb. And all that screws on here. Ta-da! Stack it up like that. And you want to leave some threads there because otherwise you're going to have way too much room for this little guy to wiggle around, because if the blue is all the way up there, then this is going to flop around like a la-la-la, and then your bulb's going to smash into stuff and you're going to have a problem, and I don't even understand what the hell's going on. Flipped it upside down, zip ties, I don't know, wire management. This will probably go more like that. Woo. Now, what the heck is this thing? So, a lot of LEDs in the Saabs will either hyperflash or throw errors when you throw them in. So people will take resistors, you know, wire them up, but they'll still get hyperflash. So, what I've done is take a waterproof relay, and when this relay doesn't get power, it sends the signal that's trying to test the bulb to this resistor.